Alrighty, we got a C League match here between gamesou and nerdbound. So far, I think gamesou hasn't played any matches yet, and it's 0-0. Nerdbound won their first one 5-1. So they're in a pretty good spot, although it's very early in the season. Looking at this first kingdom, what's going on? Looks like the big limitation here is draw. There's no good source of draw. You can potentially draw with Ironmonger if it happens to hit a victory card. That's generally pretty unreliable, given that very rarely is your deck primarily victory cards. Now, if you had something like Secret Passage, you could potentially set that up and make that draw, but generally I would think of Ironmonger as a village rather than draw, because your deck tends to be predominantly action cards. And then other than that, Goat Herd can potentially be draw if your opponent has trashed multiple cards in their previous turn. But obviously there's no reliable way to guarantee that they do that. So you can't build a deck around relying that you draw on Goat Herd. And then lastly, there's horses here. Stampede can give you horses, and Hostelry can give you horses. But neither of those is a reliable draw either. Stampede is really hamstrung by the fact that you've only got... you can't play a whole lot of cards before buying it. And then Hostelry, you have to discard a card to get draw, which makes it draw neutral, because you have to reduce your hand size by 1 to get a hand size increase of 1. And so you can't really net draw with Hostelry. So that really puts the kibosh on building super big here. I would think that you're going to play something simpler here. I think there's still value in getting thin. Trashing here is pretty fine between Goat Herd and Temple. Ironmonger, it's good in engines, but it's also, I think, reasonably good in money decks as well, where it's more likely to get the +1 coin or +1 card effect if your deck's got more treasures and victory cards in it. And so I would expect that we still see him to click a bunch of action cards. Lots of Ironmongers. Maybe Kiln. Kiln's probably not bad here. You'll actually probably play with some golds. You can reap to get golds and then kiln the golds to get extra golds. I don't think Giant's worth it. It might be. Giant's pretty weak. This isn't the strongest kingdom though. There's Guardian, which can block the Giant. But my thinking would be, if your opponent's not drawing the deck, they can't reliably get Guardians down. So just buying 2 Guardians and playing them every other turn would not be sufficient, because you can't guarantee you'll play those Guardians every turn. And then B, even if they do block with Guardians, honestly, just buying 1 Giant to get my opponent to buy 2 Guardians is kind of an attack in and of itself, because Guardian is a pretty weak card. It's like a little copper. So I could totally see Giant getting bought. As far as the opening, Ironmonger Silver, Ironmonger Goat Herd are the 2 things that jump out to me. And as I say that, they do neither of those. Temple and Island, I don't know. Island seems really strange to me. Island's just, it's a weak card. Island's a really weak card. I mean, I guess it's a weak enough kingdom that it's not just game losing. But I wouldn't think about clicking Island necessarily, I don't think. Especially with other trashes, they can get rid of your estates via other means. The problem is, points just tend to matter very little at the beginning of the game. So scoring 2 points on turn 2 just doesn't matter, because the early game effect of getting a good card into your deck will compound and make your deck much, much better in the long term. And points don't do that. So scoring doesn't matter. And so if you ignore the 2-point aspect of Island is just trash 1 card once. And doesn't give you an action, doesn't give you draw. Just a terminal, trash 1 card, and then it disappears from your deck. And that's a really, really weak effect before. So I'm very much not a fan of Island. Temple seems more fun. I can get behind Temple Silver. I still think Ironmonger is a good enough card that I would click that anyway. But Temple Silver is fine. I'm really confused by gamesou's plan. Actually, no, Stampede's not so bad. Stampede can get you to reap, I guess. Yeah, that worked out all right. The turn 3 Stampede. I think Reap is... it's generally not very strong, just because gaining gold is usually not a very strong effect, and you're paying even more than gold for it. So Reap isn't something you get super often, but it can be fine in weaker, kind of money-ish kingdoms like this one. Because if you want golds, I find that Reap has this sort of chain reaction effect where you buy Reap 1 turn, you're very likely to hit 7 the next turn and be able to buy Reap again, which lets you buy Reap again, and so forth. And so if you get it off, you are often able to just keep getting reaps for a while, and they get a decent number of golds. So I do actually like the turn 3 Stampede from gamesou. I think that's a good idea. Now that being said, this is actually like rather lucky, because Island Silver is not an opening that's all that likely to hit 5, nor is Temple Silver. Ironmonger Silver, the opening I was suggesting, is going to get you to 5 a lot more frequently. My throat is hoarse. All right, so where do we stand now? Yeah, so here we're seeing what I was just describing. gamesou is now just like reaping consistently, which I think makes sense here. It's a perfectly fine strategy. And then how about nerdbound? They bought reap last turn, and now they've got oodles of money here. Now, if this weren't a money deck, I would just click Hoth 3 in a heartbeat. Getting like 5 horses would be great. It's kind of like a stampede that comes with a Hoth 3. That being said, having a million draws isn't all that valuable here when you've only got 1 plus buy. So here it's less clear. I think nerdbound could consider Kiln, maybe. Their deck has fewer golds in it than gamesou's does, but it's still not that unlikely to hit a good card. Obviously, you'd ideally kill the gold, but killing a silver would be fine as well. They went for Reap, which I don't dislike. gamesou already provincing. As nerdbound, I think I would just take a second Temple here for the points. We're already kind of in the greening phase. They took Island. Why do they? What do they see in Island? I don't get the Island at all. Island is 2 victory points. Temple is 3 victory points. Just on the face of it, if you're going for a greedy points grab, there's a more effective measure. But also, Temple can trash your other Temple and you're still fine. I don't like the Island. It just seems strictly inferior to a Temple that had 3 victory points on top. Not the most exciting kingdom. Not a whole lot going on. I would have liked to kill in these decks at some point. Maybe like right before triggering a shuffle, like the point where I was discussing nerdbound buying it. Because, Reap gets a golden deer deck once. Kiln is a silver in its own right, but then can potentially gain you multiple golds. So I thought, an early Kiln might not have been a bad idea. Not that I think it's like the key card that this game will revolve around. gamesou provincing again. Nerdbound islanding again. I mean, at this point, the islands are a little bit less bad this late in the game with 4. This is about the point where island becomes like it goes from a terrible to a mediocre card. It seems to me that gamesou has a marginal lead here, but I think this could go either way. For nerdbound, I think I would just trash the Ironmonger. Nope, they're not going to do that. I was going to say trash the Ironmonger with Temple and then buy Temple, and then that would score you 4 points, which puts you in the lead. With 2 provinces left is the point where I really want a points lead by any means necessary, because, let's say they didn't score here. If they left themselves at 26, well, your opponent can buy the penultimate province, and then you can't province back, because if they're at 35 and you buy a province, you're only at, 32, and then you still lose. Whereas if you scored 4 points with the Temple play, then you're at 30 now, they're at 29. If they buy a province and go to 35, you buy the province back and go to 36 and you win. And that 1 extra point, I think, from trash Ironmonger by Temple, 4 points, as compared to 3 from a duchy, I think it's a really big difference because if you were at 29 and they were at 29, gamesou's player 2 here, so they could buy province, and then that would actually still be functionally the same as being behind on points, because the way it works is if you're player 1 and the game ends in a tie on your turn, you lose because you've taken more turns to get there. Nerdbound would have taken 14 turns and gamesou only 13, and so player 2 wins in that scenario. It's only a true tie if the game is tied between the players and also they've taken an equal number of turns. So like if it ends in a tie on player 2's turn, then it's fine. So if it's 29-29 and gamesou buys the penultimate province, taking it to 35, Nerdbound could not province back and bring it to 35 because they would lose. So I thought the 4-point temple play for Nerdbound was kind of crucial. Then as it happens, they played an Ironmonger and drew a copper, which they were able to trash anyway and do the same play. But I don't know, that was just like a risk I wouldn't want to take. What if you draw a victory card or something and then you have nothing good to trash? You don't want to trash your gold or your province. Ironmonger is obviously better than copper, and they got lucky with it, but I would not have rolled those dice. So here it's either duchy or island. Either seems fine at this point. Duchy's marginally more points, but here again the number of points you really need to score here is just 2. You want to be ahead of gamesou. And so 2 versus 3, not a big difference given the current point distribution. Here that 1 extra victory point doesn't matter very much. And so you could potentially get the island with the idea of setting aside a victory card. Granted, that is also pretty marginal because the game is almost over. That little island effect is only going to come into play if you draw the island, play the island, then draw back through your deck. It's affecting you it's helping you for the first time 2 shuffles down the road is when you'll first have the benefit of having a slightly cleaner deck from an island you buy now. And it's pretty likely the game never gets that far. So both the 1 extra point of duchy and the marginal thinning benefit of islander are really marginal here, and I don't think it's obvious which one's better. But Nerdbound is pondering long and hard over this. I guess they could be contemplating Stampede, but I think that's worse. Again, Stampede is saying, I think my opponent can't province, and I just want to province twice. But I wouldn't take that risk. As a matter of fact, we see gamesou's hand, and that would just be losing on the face of it. If Nerdbound buys Reap, gamesou buys Stampede. Or sorry, I said that totally wrong. If Nerdbound buys Stampede, gamesou buys Province, and then Nerdbound's in a terrible position. So that's not a gamble worth taking. I'm going to guess they click Island, given how much these players seem to love Island from earlier in the game. Duchy, okay, well, we don't like islands anymore. So now gamesou, I would think, should buy Duchy. And then Nerdbound is going to be in a slightly awkward spot here because they're not going to be able to retake the lead. Trashing with Temple here is only going to tie them. Not that gamesou knows that. I feel like Duchy here is just the obvious only buy. I'm not sure what they're contemplating. I mean, you could think about, is my deck much worse than my opponent's? In which case, maybe you just want to gamble and buy Province and hope to get lucky rather than drawing the game out long term. I don't think that's true, though. I mean, gamesou's deck seems fine for the most part. They're less thin, but have more golds. And if you're not a big deficit and don't have any strong reason to take a gamble, then Duchy just seems like the obvious play here. Now, granted, if they were to buy a province at this point, that would end up being a very likely good play, just because nerdbound's got a horrible hand right now. But gamesou has no way of knowing that. Oh, they went for it. Oof, and it did not pay off. So gamesou here can score at most 3 points, either via duchy or via temple. And neither of those is going... Oh, actually, no, that is enough. That's actually fine. They're up 4 points still. Yeah, this is actually a win for gamesou regardless. So here we see, they're already at 4 points. So if they score 3 more, they're up by 7. And then nerdbound will not be able to afford that last province. Or they'll be able to afford it. They won't be able to take it or they'll lose. So gamesou is actually still fine. That last hand from nerdbound was kind of a killer. Between temple and duchy, I have to assume temple is marginally better. Actually, that's not even true. Like, trash with temple plus by duchy is 4 points, which is maybe an argument for doing that. It's not clear to me whether duchy or temple is better. Island. I think I like island less than temple. There's, of course, this concern of you and your opponent both have temples in your decks. And so island and temple are both worth 2 for you. But if you leave that temple there and your opponent trashes with the temple and buys a temple, then it's going to be worth 3 for them. So you might want to take temple over island just because it's a bigger cost to your opponent. As far as the thinning benefits go, I'd say they're pretty similar. Island can get rid of the victory card, but temple can also trash your other temple. Island wouldn't be terrible. Island would be fine there, but I would have thought temple. That Guardian was a clutch play from gamesou. They have 7 in hand, and that Guardian is going to make the difference. Now, with 2 coins, you could buy an estate, and estate's worth 1 point. And so it's important to consider at this juncture, is that 1 point going to make a difference? And the answer is no. Gamesou's up by 4 points, and being up by 4 versus 5 doesn't matter. If your opponent can buy province, they win. If they can't buy province, they don't win. If gamesou had 1 more point, let's say for example, I don't know, if they somehow scored 1 more, and it was 42 to 37, then I would think buying a state's the safer play. Because if you could bring your score up to 6 more than your opponent's, now all of a sudden you're in a safe spot again because your opponent, being player 1, can't buy the province. So, given where they were at, the 1 point from a state was no value. Instead, they bought a Guardian, just because Guardian gives that immediate next turn effect of get a coin. And that paid off. Game 1 is going to gamesou. I'm not even sure trashing the silver is worth it, honestly. Yeah. Nerdbound's deck is really fragile. I'm not sure you can afford to even lose these silvers. Obviously, there's no play that's actually winning, given that we can see gamesou's hand. But this is the ball game. That Guardian was a difference maker. If they hadn't hit 7 there, or if they hadn't hit 8, I mean, and nerdbound was in a good position to province. Alrighty, gamesou takes it as player 2. Now, if I'm player 2 in a scenario, definitely this long, protracted money type game is going to be the sort of scenario I'm hoping for, because having 1 extra turn as player 1 matters a lot different than a long, 18 turn game than in a 10 or 11 turn game. Alright, what have we got here? This looks... I think this is pretty boring and gross. There's stuff here, but I don't think it comes together well enough to do a whole lot, is my impression. Your only village is Conclave. which it's hard to play large numbers of because it's only a village the first time you play any other action card per turn. So let's say you tried to build like a Conclave, Village, and Scholar for draw deck. The first Scholar you can play Conclave and use that to play Scholar, and then you get like a little Village effect. But then any future Scholars you can't use the Conclave effect on. And so it's hard to build a deck that does a lot here. So I don't think that we're going to see him build very big. I think the cards that jump out to me are Sculptor. I think is a pretty good money card. You just take lots of silvers with it, and then your deck is full of silvers, and that's very good for buying one province per turn. And then Ambassador, it seems like it's generally a very strong card, money or not, because it gets you very thin. And so I would think that the goal is to get thin with Ambassador and then play Sculptor for silvers. So game 2 is the 5-2. Opens with Upgrade. I'm not totally sure what I think of that. I mean, it's totally fine. I would also have strongly considered Sculptor or Ambassador there. I think Ambassador is one of those cards that it's strong enough that you almost always have to open with Ambassador. It's just a really strong trasher and also a junker. And a lot of times if you get 5-2 in Ambassador games, you're sad because all you get to buy is Ambassador. You have to buy the Ambassador on 5 anyway, and then buy nothing on 2. And that can be kind of disappointing. And that, honestly, that could be the best play here. It's hard to say. But Upgrade is not a bad trasher, and it can get you an Ambassador. Just at a slight delay, trash an estate, gain 1. And so, this is a reasonable play as well. And then lastly, you could even consider this opening a Sculptor and being a little bit behind on trashing. Again, if your ultimate plan is not to play a very well-oiled engine, but to play money, being a little bit behind on the thinning isn't as much of a concern. And so, take a Sculptor early and then take an Ambassador could also work. So Nerdbound got an Altar. Do we want Altar? I'm kind of inclined to say Altar is fine. It trashes and it can gain you Sculptors, and those both seem like things worth doing. I think I agree that I would take 3-4 on this board and open Ambassador Warehouse. Let's see if that's what they did. Ambassador Conclave. That's interesting. Conclave, it is a silver in worst, so it's like opening a silver that can potentially be a village down the road. And, that's not a bad opening. I think it's a fine opening. I would have gotten the Warehouse just to make sure I'm maximizing my chance of finding my Ambassador and then playing it. You're really happy if you can find Warehouse and Ambassador turn 3, and then trigger a shuffle with your Ambassador back in at turn 4. The Conclave says they're more concerned about hitting 5 or 6 early, which it's not unreasonable. Again, in this kingdom, like I was saying a second ago, Sculptor, you could just say, I'm not as worried about getting super thin. I want to get a bit thin with them, with an Ambassador, and then move more quickly towards hitting higher price points, playing Sculptors and so forth. Ooh, this is a little bit of a sad hand for Nerdbound. I don't think I like this play order. So they had to discard 3 cards. Their hand was Conclave, Sculptor, Altar, 3 coppers. So if you discard your 3 coppers, then you can't trash one with Altar. And so they discarded Sculptor instead, so they'd be able to trash. I was thinking you keep the Conclave, Sculptor, and Altar anyway, and then you play Conclave on Sculptor, gain a silver, and then trash that with Altar. And the difference is that that leaves a copper in your deck instead of a silver, but it gives a villager from the sculptor, which I think potentially would have a lot of value there. Like if, for example, you were to sculpt a scholar. So yeah, given the line I was suggesting, where like you hold onto a villager, scholar might be a really good play. They got conclaves in the deck anyway. I don't want mass scholars here, but I think one scholar could be fine, especially given that you have the ability to pick up some villagers with your sculptors. Well, I mean, it's definitely like money-ish in the sense that you're not really trying to do any more than buy a single province. But I think Scholar fits fine in that deck. Like Scholar, just think of it as like a smithy. Now, we have not seen very many sculptors taken. We've seen a lot of scholars taken. They really like their scholars. That's fine. But between the two of those, I would think priority number one is the sculptors. I would expect this to be like more the reverse, like a bunch of sculptors taken and like one or two scholars taken. I was anticipating the plan being lots of scholars. Lots of sculptors. What are we discarding here? I guess you're just discarding Warehouse and 2 coppers, so you can still Ambassador 1 copper. And you can buy another Conclave, I guess. Buying gold sounds really unattractive to me. I think that just goes without saying. That's going to be my take. If you're just buying gold, the answer is no. For nerdbound, I would think 1/6. That's just a scholar, a sculptor. For gamesou, I mean, they could consider picking up an altar themselves if they wanted one. 2 altars is probably too much. Three scholars is a whole lot of scholars. Now, Nerd not having the sad hand with Ambassador, 2 scholars, and then no Conclave. I think it's predictable that's going to happen at some points. I would think having like a villager or 2 stocked up would be really good for avoiding that. And I wish they had taken one earlier. Prince. That's interesting. I mean, I guess if you can get it down, the Prince might be fine. Like, printing a Conclave would be pretty nice. Prince is in general not very strong. It's got a few drawbacks. One, of course, is it costs 8, which is a lot. And that often means you can't get it until late-ish in the game. And so it doesn't have much time to pay off. You're already at the point where you can buy province. Now that on its own is not, a death knell against it. There's other things like pathfinding and citadel that also cost 8, but you buy those basically every game before buying your first province. But Prince also is weak in a number of other ways. I think the biggest one is it's really slow to set up. With the ones I was discussing a second ago, pathfinding or citadel, you buy it and immediately get the effect the very next turn. You buy a citadel, it's happening at the start of your next turn. Same with pathfinding. With Prince, it's going into your deck, and it might be 2 to 3 turns before you draw the Prince, and then you've got to make sure that the Prince lines up with a $4 or less action card, and then you've got to spend an action playing the prince, which, maybe you draw it dead and you don't have actions left or something like that. And you have to forego playing that $4 action card that turn. And let's say it was an important card for your deck, right, like Conclave, where it's the card you really want a prince. That's probably because you also really wanted to play it. And so the turn you're playing your prince, you're having to waste an extra action card playing the prince, while also not playing a card you wanted to play. And so all of that, where it doesn't take effect for a few turns, and on the turn you play it, it's like actively really slowing you down, often makes it a big short-term cost. And then, because it took a while to get, and then even longer to put in play, there's not too many turns for you to reap the benefit. And so that makes Prince usually pretty weak. Now, this kingdom is kind of weak, though, and they got it before even provincing for the first time. And so it does seem quite possible that gamesou might have enough time for it to pay off here. But, take a stronger kingdom, where the game's going to end, like, turn 12. And then, honestly, even earlier than that often. The prince often is just not going to be in play enough turns to make up for the large drawback that it costs you. But we have not been seeing the strongest kingdoms here. All that depends on the kingdom, of course. But province is usually better than the first prince. In this kingdom, I would say province seems better than the second prince. Like, the main benefit of prince here is just, if you can prince a conclave, which they were able to, then you avoid those dead hands where you draw just a scholar and no village. Like Nerdbound's hand earlier with 2 scholars and an ambassador would have been a really fine hand if they had a conclave princed. You could play the ambassador with conclave, play the scholar, and still have 1 action left. So they're playing this a bit more engine-y than I would have. They got tons of drawn villages here. And the big difficulty, of course, is there's no plus buy or anything. So even getting to 16 wouldn't really help you here. The one thing you could do is, Nerdbound has an altar, and so they could be building up to province plus a duchy per turn, ideally, where you buy a province, play an altar, gain a duchy off of it. But I would have kind of expected the sculptor deck to be greening already. And of course, greening first doesn't mean you win if you're playing versus a stronger deck, but I don't think these decks are going to be that much stronger to justify the longer build time. Alrighty, so Nerdbound is thinking long and hard here. Yeah, Conclave and the altar felt like the natural next thing to do. What does their deck need? They've already got 2 warehouses, so a third might be overkill. I don't get the upgrade. I'm not sure what they're planning to upgrade here. They've already got 1. I honestly don't know what the upgrade's doing for you. A first upgrade, if nothing else, can be a potential target for your conclaves. Like we were discussing, if you want to build this engine that plays a bunch of scholars, you got this problem of you can't conclave scholar multiple times. It has to be a card you haven't already played. And so you can sort of resolve that by adding cantrip action cards like upgrade. And if you conclave an upgrade, you get +1 action from the upgrade, +1 from the conclave. And you've functionally gotten a village out of that. Conclaving a cantrip. And so you could do like, your first shuffle, or not your first shuffle, your first hand of the turn, conclave scholar, then you do conclave upgrade scholar, and so forth, and keep drawing on like that. But of course that's only going to work for the first upgrade in your deck, and so you don't really need multiples of those. And upgrades trashing is not optional. And between 2 upgrades and an altar, I'm not sure I'm convinced that Nerdbound has enough junk in their deck to consistently feed 3 cards worth of trashing per turn. Maybe gamesou would be nice and play their ambassador. Okay, but I don't want a gold in my deck. That's the big problem. If you're playing the deck they are, you got to be making a lot of your money mid-turn, right? Because you're pitching your hand repeatedly, and so golds aren't actually gonna be all that helpful. Because if you draw the gold anywhere but the very bottom of your deck, you're just discarding with Scholar again. And then consider, again, there's no plus buy, and, well, barring gamesou getting plus buy on the one turn where it's not helpful because they're in 15 debt. But there's no plus buy, and you're playing with a ton of conclaves anyway just for the village effect, so you're probably already hitting 8, honestly, just from the conclaves alone. And so the gold just seems probably worse than nothing. Yeah, printing a warehouse would be great for reliability. If you had a warehouse and a conclave print, that'd be very nice. So the bids, so gamesou bid 15 on Nerdbound's province buy, and then Nerdbound did not outbid that. I would say the baseline for Mountain Pass is probably about 14. There's nothing strongly mathematical or anything about that. That just seems what things have settled on. Is in generally bid 14-ish. I would think that in this kingdom you can probably bid a little bit higher than that. I was actually going to say 15 seems slightly low to me, because you have more money than you need from all these conclaves and stuff and Bard and whatnot, and no extra buys to make use of it. And so the actual plus coin aspect is of relatively low value to you in the deck. And so I'd be happy to be in debt a little bit. I was thinking 15 is probably the low end, and 16 or 17 might be the high end here. Like, I would have expected Nerdbound to pay 16 for that. So here I would assume that... Actually, what does gamesou do? They're still in too much debt to hit any price point of much use. Might just take an altar at this point. No, they do not want an altar. I was considering sending back no coppers and picking up an altar, and then you can alter those coppers into duchies, and that seems fine. And in that case, I think I actually would have not even played the ambassador. You, of course, with ambassador, it says up to 2, and people often read that as 1 or 2, but that does, strictly speaking, mean 0 to 2. And so with ambassador, you could reveal a card like copper and return 0 copies of it, but then you still give out a copper's worth of junk to your opponent. And so if you do that, then you could junk your opponent with copper. But I actually think probably Nerdbound's deck would be happy with an extra copper because they have so many of these trashing cards, 2 upgrades and a altar. I wouldn't even give them a copper. Oh, did I miscount JCK? They had 8 debt, 6 money, 4 in a hand. Oh, maybe they couldn't even got an altar. You might be right. I was probably miscounting that. Nine money before paying off the 8 debt. Yeah, and that was with getting rid of 3 more coppers. So I think probably the most they could have hit was 4. In which case, yeah, no altar. Who's in the lead here? I have to think gamesou's in the lead because they're similar points-wise, while gamesou has managed to get 2 princes down. And it's not like gamesou is buying princes while nerdbound was buying provinces. They got those princes, and nerdbound was not able to say anything about that. I'm not sure exactly why gamesou's in the lead. Did their opening go better? Let's go back and look. The curse buy just seems bad. Yeah, I don't know. Nerdbound's early turns seem fine to me. Buying a curse with Ambassador can be good in some cases. So it's often a very easy way to punish someone who doesn't respect Ambassador enough. If you play Ambassador early and you get your deck really thin with it, and your opponent just ignores it, and I don't know, just scores early with a bunch of provinces, then the thin engine deck that's got ambassadors in it can often buy curse, and then distribute curses. An ambassador can become a cursor, and that punishes you for not building in like a big engine kingdom. But here, Nerdbound's deck is, I think, perfectly capable of dealing with curses, and might even actively welcome them. Curse is a target for altar or for the upgrades. And so gamesou jumping through these hurdles to get a curse in per turn, where they have to line up their ambassador with curse and play it, seems very much not worth it to me. Oh yeah, Nerdbound did have some bad draws a little bit later, like the Scholar Ambassador hand, and maybe that's what set him back. Maybe they learned the error of their ways. They reflected upon their decision, and they said, that was foolish of me, let me cut my losses. I mean, it's not that the curse buy was a crucial error or anything. gamesou's deck is able to handle it, and maybe Nerdbound's deck benefits a little from it. But if gamesou's already in the lead, I don't think the curse is costing the lead. Maybe their goal is just to make sure that every card in this kingdom gets gained at least once. So far, I think that covers everything but Duchy. If we see a Duchy gain at some point, which I assume we will, off the altar if nothing else, then we'll have seen them play with every single card that exists in this kingdom. Will-O-Wisp has been gotten off of the Bard. We've given estates out with Ambassador, and every kingdom card has been acquired, and for some reason they even have golds. So it's really just Chris and Dutchy left. And now I've got Chris covered. Why do they have a noble brigand? This is gamesou, right? Gains a noble brigand. They didn't even buy it. if you buy noble brigand, you at least get the attack off of buying it. But if you gain noble brigand like they did with sculptor, you don't even get the effect. You nab their silvers, which is probably better than nothing, but not really much of an attack. So I would assume the best way back in this game for nerdbound, I guess, would be to get really lucky with Bard and find Forest Gift. Forest Gift is the clutch boon that you're looking for here because it would let you buy 2 provinces in the same turn. Forest Gift, of course, already came up, and it was like one of the most useless turns. gamesou got Forest Gift while they were in 15 debt, and so they couldn't even use the extra buy. And we are almost about to shuffle the boon deck again. It's 1 boon left before a reshuffle. And so you could totally see Forest Gift come up. And maybe Nerdbound gets really lucky and snags that. But beyond that, it does seem like gamesou's got a pretty good lead here. Ambassadoring a province is a thing that can come up. If there's 2 provinces left and you've got a lead, you can pass them a province and then buy a province and then you win. Where passing means like you keep your own province and you just give them the province, and then it lowers the province pile by 1, which can be helpful. Now, does gamesou have 2 ambassadors? Even if they do, I don't think they can afford to pass 2 provinces. That would, like, pass 2 provinces, buy 1 provinces would be a loss. It's something that might come up next turn. Oh, they're so close. If they had 1 more... No, they would need 1 more action and 1 more $4 card. And then they could do it. Because if they had... Like, let's say they had 2 conclaves in their hand instead of 2 sculptors. Then they could trash a conclave into a duchy. Ambassador 2 provinces to Nerdbound. And then buy a province. And they would score 9 and be at 29. Nerdbound would score 12 and be at 28. And that would have actually worked. Why another Bard? I don't know. Maybe they just really want to find that Forest Gift. That's less important for gamesou than it is for Nerdbound. As gamesou, you're threatening to win this turn. Take another villager. Are you taking another villager instead of passing 2 silvers? Because a villager could help, but also getting 2 silvers out of your deck can help. gamesou needs the villagers a lot less right now than Nerdbound does, because gamesou's got 2 conclaves coming in every single turn. Nerdbound could win with fourth. They've also got to get to 16 though, which this starting hand is not looking amazing for. They might not even get to 8. Sad. Alright, well, gamesou should win this turn. We'll even get to see the little ambassador trick that Aglet was describing. Play Bard, play Scholar, play Conclave, play Ambassador, and that's a win. Yeah. Except you don't actually return the province. You just distribute the province. Yes, there should be an ambassador and a province in the next 7 cards. I don't know why. What are we doing, gamesou? That was not a good play. You don't need a duchy. Maybe they're not thinking about the ambassador thing. In which case, I think that's a pretty big oversight. I mean, they're going to win anyway. If they don't win this turn, they'll win like next turn. But definitely something you should be aware of with ambassadors, the ability to lower provinces. Yeah, I mean, they could sculpt the ambassador now. But also, if they play Scholar, they've got an ambassador and a province down there. All right, well, they want to do it now. Okay. Either way works. I definitely would have played the Bard rather than the Conclave, because the Conclave involves more. Or sorry, the Bard involves more clicks. You've got to resolve the little boon thing that you don't care about. All right, 2-0 for gamesou. What do we got here? All right, now we're getting into stronger kingdom territory. There's still no plus buy though, which is a bit of a limitation. You can't do double province here. The big thing here looks to be, I guess, A, Tomb, and B, Torturer. Those are both significant. Torturer is strong draw, and the attack can hurt. Tomb gives you tons of points. You also don't really need treasures here, because you could even draw with some of your torturers, and then play the rest of the torturers with a Wave Chameleon for +3 coins instead of +3 cards, and get your payload that way. Early in the game, the interaction I'm looking at here is Hostelry and Engineer, where you get an Engineer early, and then you gain Hostelries off of it, and you discard all your coppers and get tons of horses. And that's a very good way to accelerate your deck early. I would definitely open with Engineer here. The clicking is somewhat over the top. For context, Dan Brooks, one of the best Dominion players. If you watch his videos, like, Dominion is not a click-intensive game. You don't have to click all that fast, but he does anyway. I think he played StarCraft or something, and so if you want to, he'll click all over the place, just like constantly, even when nothing's happening. Just clicks out of habit, and I can see how someone might find that. Oh yeah, I think it might be right clicks. He's like right clicks everything. I can see how that might be disconcerting to watch. I nonetheless largely learned Dominion watching Dan Brooks' videos, and came to get used to the clicking. Anyways, 2-5 I feel like is awkward, Because it's the one opening that makes it hard to justify opening engineer. If you take engineer on the 5, you're not getting it. You're not getting torture. If you take it on the 2, you can't afford torturer. On 5-2, you could do torture engineer. On 3-4, 4-3, I'm definitely taking engineer. I say that as gamesou doesn't mind engineer. I'm very disappointed in this. Transmogrify develop, it seems worse to me. I think transmogrify engineer just seems way better. Tmog and develop are both estate trashers by and large. Develop trashing copper is a lot sadder. You don't gain anything off of it. Transmogrify literally can't get rid of coppers because the gaining part is not optional. And so if you transmogrify to copper, you'd be required to gain a copper or a curse back to your hand. So you've opened with 2 estate trashes, which I think is a little bit overkill. I would rather do transmogrify and then engineer, and then you can be trashing your estates with Tmog while using engineer to get horses off your coppers. And that sounds a lot better to me. Nerdbound finding their torturer turn 3 is really good. Yeah, I think no engineer yet is just a mistake. Engineer, like I was saying at the start, is just like the key card I want in the early game. Get all the hosieries, get all the horses. Hosiery is really good with any gainer, like workshop or armory or engineer early on, because this horse gain effect is really strong. It's weaker when you have to buy the hosiery. Still not bad. Definitely not bad. But it's weaker when you have to buy the hosiery because you're presumably putting most of your treasures in play to buy it. But if you can just gain the hosiery outright with a workshop, like a hand of workshop and 4 coppers, then you gain the hosiery and discard all the coppers. And getting a bunch of horses is really good early on for jump-starting your deck when your deck's not quite under control yet. I would think of the effect of gaining hosiery as just, it's like temporarily neutralizing the existence of coppers in your deck. And the easiest way to imagine this is like if you drew your whole deck and then you gained a hosiery and discarded all 7 of your coppers. Now next turn you've got 7 coppers in your deck, which is like -1 card each, because copper is a stop card. But then you've gained 1 horse per copper. You've got 7 horses in your deck. And the horses are +1 card each. And so the 7 draw from horses will allow you to draw the 7 coppers back. And then if you discard the coppers again by getting another hosiery, well, you've got 7 coppers in your deck with 7 more horses. And so as long as you're gaining a hosiery per turn, you never get to play the coppers because you have to discard them each turn. But their effect on your deck of slowing your deck down is being essentially counterweighted by the horses. And so every time you discard coppers to the hosiery effect, it's just like getting those coppers out of your deck for a little bit, functionally speaking. And that's obviously very good. Now I've kind of lost track of where in the game we are. Playing Torture turn 3 is much better than turn 4. We've seen Nerdbound got to find Torture in their turn 3 hand. A little sad they do the crossroads, but still very worth it. With a card like Smithy or Torturer, if you find them turn 3, then they trigger a shuffle, which is often very good. Because if you had 12 cards in your deck and you had a 5-card hand turn 3, then you have 7 cards left coming up. If you draw 3 cards with Torture, you only got 4 cards left. Which means turn 4, when you go to draw 5 cards, you don't have 5 cards left, you only got 4 cards left. You're forced to shuffle your deck early. Whereas normally you'd shuffle your deck after turn 4, there you're shuffling your deck before turn 4. Which is really good because it means the Torturer is going back into your deck early, and anything you bought turn 3 is going back into your deck early, and you get to see them sooner. And so sometimes, like if you get real lucky, then imagine just getting to play like Torture turn 3, triggers the shuffle, then turn 4, triggers the shuffle, turn 5, triggers the shuffle, and just like find the Torture every turn. That can be really devastating. Will we see an engineer gained at any point in this game? Hopefully, but at this point it's looking uncertain. What's this bottom card in nerdbound stack? Does anyone know? Is that just a copper? Have they trashed a copper yet? It's probably the last copper. Estate? Oh, sorry. I said nerdbound. I meant gamesou. If that affects your answer. Nerdbound has mini cards left in their deck. It's an estate? Where'd their copper go? Why am I not seeing it? Oh, yeah. You're right. It's an estate. They did trash one copper. I confused myself. I said nerdbound and then it did a little control F test for nerdbound trashes copper and did not see it. gamesou really needs a gainer, I would think. Like now seems like an excellent time to buy an engineer. If they got all these torturers to draw on, develop is not the right card. I mean, the spirit's there. Develop's also a gainer, but it's a much worse gainer. Taking the curse did not make sense. Why is that? And I don't know exactly what their plan was, but they might have been hoping to buy Hostler this turn, in which case the copper might have value. Yeah, see, it's not obvious to me that taking the curse was a bad idea. You also don't know ex ante how many torturers are coming. gamesou didn't draw a torturer, but nerdbound had no way of knowing that. And so if you think more torturers might be coming, it would be better to take the curse early, and then you can discard the curse you just gained to the torturer. Whereas if you discard first and have to take a curse anyway, now you're left with a curse in hand instead of, say, a copper that you could have used to gain a horse. I think killing that T-Magna Torturer makes sense. Nerdbound seems to be in the back foot as far as the Torturer attacks go. And you gotta kind of hope to turn the tides. It's a very snowbally card. You're in a very bad spot when you get locked in that torture stuff. And often if you're the first one to do that, you just win. And so if you're the person who's in Nerdbound's position, you might have to take someone desperate measures like trashing your transmogrify instead of an estate. I still so wish these decks had an engineer. Like imagine if you were discarding all your coppers each turn and gaining a hostelry, you would be finding your torturers every single hand and playing all of them. Yeah, like it's Nerdbound, I would take this curse here, especially not knowing if gamesou's gonna hit you with another attack. Another thing to consider is if you're towards the bottom of your shuffle, Nerdbound only has 7 cards left, and I don't know if there's torturers down there, but I suspect there might be. If you think you're gonna trigger a shuffle, then discard attacks hurt doubly bad because not only are you discarding 2 cards from your hand, you're sticking them right into the shuffle that you're about to trigger, and then you're drawing 2 more junk cards in that shuffle than you otherwise would. And so getting hit with a discard attack at the bottom of your shuffle just feels real bad. As gamesou, I would think you just discard the... Oh, no, never mind. They took the curse. Yeah, now as gamesou, you might just eat all the curses. I don't even know. I think I would take this curse at the very least. I'm definitely taking a curse here. The develop, like, you definitely want develop in this deck. I did not like the develop opening at all. Mostly because it wasn't engineer. Alright, there we go. Turn 12. We finally see an engineer get gained. Better very late than never. I do not wonder about that, Moyo. Torture is a better card. Drawing 3 cards is like twice as good as drawing 2 cards. And every time you play a Torture, your hand size increases by 2. Every time you play a Cardinal with Way of the Chameleon, your hand size increases by 1. You could consider maybe adding some Cardinals after Torturers run out if you've got a surplus of villages, which you might with Hostelries. But I would not be taking Cardinal over Torturer at any point when there's still curses to be given. So they seem to be trying to avoid triggering this shuffle. It might just be because... I'm actually not sure. Maybe they've got a bunch of junk down there that I'm not sure of. But I would think your develops are down there and you're trying to find those, right? This feels like... Maybe there's more junk down there than I'm accounting for. But I would think like the thing your deck does at the end of the turn is buy a card and play develops. And if you haven't found any develops yet, then I would think you draw on. Yeah, that's not something very worth triggering a shuffle for. I don't understand why they're avoiding it. Like, you could draw all of that. Oh, that was a misplay. That was also a misplay. So if you chameleon the settlers there, then you would have gotten like a free coin out of it. Okay, well, nerdbound's going to resign anyway. So they're at the very end of their shuffle and they had a settlers in hand. Now normally with that Way of the Chameleon around, if you play the settlers, it's not going to work. You'll draw the card, but then drawing that card will trigger your shuffle and there won't be any copies in your discard anymore to pick up with settlers effect. But if they played it as Way of the Chameleon, the settlers would have failed to draw a card, would have given you a coin instead, and then the settlers would still be able to pick up a copper. And then you could trigger the shuffle using your Torturer. And the basic result of that is you just get like a free coin. Alright, what have we here? This looks like a strong kingdom. Alright, we're slowly escalating in kingdom strength, it seems, over the course of this match. We got Goons, which is a really good card. So presumably the end goal is going to be to play a bunch of Goons. We got Villages, which is Mountain Village, Coin of the Realm, as well as Villagers from Lackey. And the only draw here is Lackeys. There's Trashing with Upgrade, plus Buy with Goons. Artisan can gain things. And Artisan might be worth it, because Upgrade, Treasury, and Mountain Village are all not bad cards to gain. Although in general, Artisan might be less important than usual here just because it's competing with Goons at the same price point. Lackeys looks like the most important card to me. I want to have all the Lackeys. Lackeys is, of course, a very strong card. It's cheap and then does a lot for you very early. Like the first 2 times you play it, you can think of it as like a $2 laboratory, which is really great. The villagers are super flexible. And of course, it falls off in strength over time. Like once the villagers run out, you basically just got like an extra moat. And so it ends up being weak long term. But it accelerates your deck really fast. And so often the correct strategy is just to click Lackeys a lot. And in this kingdom, Lackeys is actually doubly good because it's the only source of draw. I guess Citadel can technically be a little bit of draw. If you have Citadel and you play a cantrip like Mountain Village, you'll draw 2 instead of 1. And so Citadel's like +1 draw. But for the most part, Lackeys is the main source of draw. And so I would like to have the lion's share of the Lackeys. Militia is probably the best opening. Militia is going to be super redundant once you get to Goons, but Militia will both help you get to Goons faster. And then once you've got Goons in your deck, you could always just upgrade your Militia later on to get it out of the way and still get something nice out of it. Actually, hitting 6 this early is gamesou. I think I would take Artisan here. The card I want first really is Upgrade. I want to get thin. Yeah, and Artisan can gain you upgrades, which is nice. Yeah, here I think I would discard Copper and Lackeys. Ooh, that's... I guess they're going to draw with 1 Wait, what? What are you doing? I don't know. This is bad. This is really bad. This is a bad play order. gamesou is doing something that does not involve getting upgrades, which just seems wrong. I think they're just trying to conserve their villagers a bit too much, and I don't think that's that important. Like, yeah, your deck's going to be running on fumes for a little bit there when your main village is just the Lackeys and the villagers are fast depleting. But I want to get a bunch of Lackeys first, get some upgrades first, get a thin deck, and then once my villager situation starts to run out, then I'm going to pivot to getting mountain villages and coins of the realm. But I want to make sure my deck's functional fast. So I was thinking that I would have thought maybe just discard Lackey's Copper there, gain an upgrade, then you can trash the estate and buy a Lackey's. Or sorry, and play a Lackey's, and then presumably also buy a Lackey's if you draw 2 coins. Alternatively, you could have gained upgrade, played 1 Lackey's, played upgrade, played the other Lackey's. That's also fine. I didn't like the line that involved not gaining and playing an upgrade. Upgrade is a good card. Harbinger is actually not bad here. All the crap that's going to be in your discard. And something to consider in terms of spamming a ton of upgrades is those upgrades will eventually evolve into goons once you're done trashing. You can upgrade an upgrade into a 6. Upgrade is often harder to spam if the only 6 in the kingdom is gold. And you don't want a bunch of golds. But here we see 2 perfectly fine 6s that you can gain if your upgrades otherwise run out of fuel and start cannibalizing themselves. I would not... Oh, sorry. Upgrade. I read that as upgrade militia. Yeah, I was about to say I wouldn't upgrade militia until I've got a goons in my deck. Is upgrading silver to militia better? Then what did they do? Now, so trashing copper removes a stop card from your deck, which makes your deck thinner. Turning silver into militia is turning one stop card into another, which doesn't make your deck any thinner. And so that seems worse. Yeah, for gamesou, getting to goons soon is a higher priority, I think, than for nerdbound, because you do want to get in those attacks. That is a true thing. All right, nerdbound's finally got an artisan. Presumably you pick up Mountain Village and then an upgrade. You might consider not taking the Mountain Village. There's, of course, the risk that maybe you don't draw a second lackeys, and then you would rather the Mountain Village be down there. Yeah, as it happens, it would have been better if gamesou did not pick up that Mountain Village. That is something worth thinking about. Like, here the Mountain Village went to waste, and now there's not a Mountain Village, and the shuffle has a bunch of lackeys in it. And there could have been. So as nerdbound, I would certainly be eyeing the last lackeys here. You don't want to be behind on those. So definitely buying that. I would think probably gain an upgrade off of artisan, trash a copper, and buy lackeys and coin. Maybe they're gonna Mountain Village for an upgrade. That would also be fine. Surely you're taking the upgrade here. Militia. Okay. So as gamesou, I really want goons ASAP. Is now the next goal. I mean, either way, you're getting a village. It's Mountain Village versus coin. The difference is getting the coin means you get to trash an extra card. Treasury. I see the logic. Treasury gets you to 6. I mean, in general, Upgrade's certainly a much better card, just in the abstract as well as for their deck, than Treasury is. But I assume the rationale is they wanted to get a Goons into their deck. And if they had gained an upgrade there, then they're hitting 5 instead of 6. What did gamesou open with that they didn't get a militia? Yeah, I don't like the silver opening from gamesou. I feel like they've let nerdbound off the hook here way too long with these discard attacks. Draw is not trivial to come by when your only draw is +1 card on net. And getting hit with a 2-card discard attack is painful. What is nerdbound buy here? I don't know. I mean, the thing you really want to buy now is Citadel, but obviously they can't afford that. Oh, looks like gamesou's also not going to get to 8 here. Oh, goodness. Sorry, I'm allergic to mountain villages. Trashing a copper versus trashing an estate. Now, often with something like upgrade or remake, trashing copper versus trashing estate can be a little better in some cases if your priority is getting thin. Trashing a copper makes you thinner, whereas turning an estate into a silver does not, because you're switching out one junk card for another. But here you could have upgraded the estate into a harbinger, which makes your deck thinner, because harbinger is not a stop card, whereas silver is. And so I'm not exactly sure why they wanted to trash the copper instead of turn estate into harbinger. A consideration is maybe the harbinger pile being too low. That could be a valid reason. If you're worried that your opponent might just rush down the harbingers really fast and take advantage of their points lead, that could be a concern. It might be a valid reason not to trash the estate there. Yeah, this seems like an automatic Citadel. Citadel's really good. In here, I mean, the main thing Citadel's giving you is draw. I would love to Citadel lackeys, and they're going to be able to, just because your deck is in desperate need of draw in this kingdom. gamesou seems a bit behind. I'm gonna guess that it's probably largely due to the silver opening. I think that going so long without attacking your opponent at all is bad. Which round is this? I think this is game 3. I want to say it's 2-0 for gamesou. Is this game 4? Oh goodness, I have no idea. Someone who actually knows the answer, please say the score. Okay, 3-0. Oh yeah, there have been 3 games. That's right. Last game was the torture developed stuff. Then there was the Conclave Scholar game. And then what was the third one? Oh, it was the like giant Ironmonger money-ish thing. Yeah, that's it. Citadel, okay. What did Nerdbound buy? Oh, that's right, they bought a Citadel. Can Nerdbound win here? I'm not sure. I would definitely be thinking at the very least about whether I could gain the Harbingers, but I think the answer is no. If you upgrade your lackeys, you probably don't have enough draw. Oh, this is getting close though. I mean, they're looking at probably 4 Harbinger gains in hand. It's still not quite enough. Probably not worth trying to go for it. Just get like a second Goons. The threat, of course, is Nerdbound's got a bit of a points lead here, and the Harbinger pile is low. And so even if you couldn't pile out Harbingers 6 in this turn, you could lower them a ton and then buy like the last 1 or 2 next turn. And then just, expect gamesou not to be able to outscore that. But I think that's just a little bit too much of an unnecessary risk here. How many cards are down in that discard? Looks like a Harbinger and 5 coppers. You can draw that. I think they might be just shy of being able to gain and play a second Goons this turn. What I'd really like to do is Nerdbound, if I could, is upgrade and upgrade into Goons and get 2 Goons down. And then buy some stuff. But I think they might just be a little bit too short on draw to get to the end of that shuffle. They have to draw through 5 coppers, which would take 2 lackeys and an upgrade play. And then so you play 2 lackeys. They might not have enough villages for what I'm describing anyway. They're actually kind of low on actions. Do they have a coin down? I got a coin down, so that should be fine. I would seriously consider buying double Harbinger here. I mean, you want Goons, of course, in your deck, but you could get a second Goons next turn if you wanted one by just upgrading upgrades. And I feel like lowering Harbingers to 4 just looks really dangerous for your opponent. I don't think gamesou can take 4 Harbingers and win. Coin Treasury. I can kind of see why you might want the coin if you're low on actions and you're expecting to call one of your coins this turn. Then you want to get a coin into your deck to get one down next turn. So maybe they just really wanted a coin, and then, well, if you got 5 left, Treasury is better than. Actually, is it better than Upgrade? It might be better than Upgrade, given how many upgrades you have. I'm not sure, though. Nerdbound does indeed have the pile out in hand. That's a good point. Play Artisan twice for upgrades, and then turn the 2 mountain villages into upgrades. Would it have still been in hand after the discard attack if they discarded differently? Yes, it would have. If they had, yeah, I guess I just didn't see it there. That was a win. If you discard into Artisan, Mountain Village, play Artisan, top deck 2 mountain villages and gain 2 upgrades, call your coin, upgrade the last 2 mountain villages into upgrades, that would have won. I agree with Steph's assessment that this game is still well in Nerdbound's control. This is not a great shuffle, though. If they don't find lackeys here, they're going to have an annoying next turn. Oh, well, they did find lackeys, so they're mostly fine. It does suck finding like all your villages at the top of the shuffle and all the terminals at the bottom. So here. Do we worry about gamesou being able to pile out? I'm not sure how much of a threat that is. gamesou has 5 lackeys, so they can draw a decent amount if they start by citadeling lackeys. Yeah, I mean, nerdbound's draw was kind of bad here. They only found one of their 5 draw cards. The payload is goons, Clakier. And I guess treasuries. We got 7. What are we buying? Well, I don't want gold. I could consider buying 2 tunnels just for a points buffer. I don't know why we need 7 coins exactly. King's Court would be lovely. Is lowering coins dangerous? Probably not that much. Coin of the Realm is actually kind of an awkward card to acquire, I guess, because you can't upgrade things into coin. It's actually harder to pile out coins than it is to pile out like harbingers or upgrades. So can gamesou win here? It has to involve getting both goons in play. I'd definitely be trying to win here as gamesou. So pick up like Mountain Village lackeys and goons. And then what pile out are you aiming for? Probably upgrades, I think. Yeah, I mean, treasury is similarly easy of attainment. And then if you have 3 buys with goons, that's 6 points. So if you can pile upgrades and then buy 2 estates and something else, that should be enough to win, right? You get 6 off the goons and 2. That would work. This might be winning here. Yeah, tunnel's actually better than 2 estates. 2 estates upgrades 9. The tunnel would save a coin. Yeah, you're definitely going for it now, I think. Gamesou is behind, and this is like the window of opportunity to win. So if you artisan for upgrade, top deck something, then you trash 2 mountain villages into upgrades. That gets close. Not finding the goons is a bit of a problem. So if they were to play 1 upgrade here and draw goons, even that's not enough. So if you play Mountain Village, draw goons, play upgrade, draw goons, then you've got the win, I believe. Right? You'd have... Yeah, that would be winning. The question is how high up your shuffle these goons are, because I don't think you can get all the way through these next 6 cards and also pile out. Yeah, so imagine you play 1 Mountain Village and draw goons, then you play an upgrade, trash a Mountain Village into upgrade, and draw goons. Then you call your coin, you play Artisan for upgrade the last Mountain Village into upgrade, play both goons. And then you would have more than 8 money. So it's definitely theoretically possible. They're not going for a win. Does this win on some other pile? Could this win on coins? This might still be a win. What if you just upgrade Artisan for a coin and buy 4 coins? That wins. Yeah, this works too. They're just going for a different one. I didn't think the coins were going to pile. That's not what I was looking at. gamesou was looking behind for a lot of this game. That was a good finish. Man, nerdbound is in a tough spot here. This is 4-0 now. And again, for context, nerdbound had a 5-1 victory in their first league match. And gamesou is 0-0 because they haven't played yet. So if nerdbound has managed to win 1 game this match, they'll still be batting 50 across their first 2 matches. Yeah, nerdbound will probably feel a little bit sad when they realize they missed a rather simple upgrade pile out. Definitely simpler than the one that gamesou ended up executing. So what have we got here? We got Hunting Party for draw, Crypt for draw, Avanto for draw. Plus action could be sacrificing things, although that's usually not something that you want to do if you have any other options. Avanto plus Sauna are also plus action. If you chain a bunch of these together, you get a plus action effect. For example, play 1 Sauna, which plays an Avanto, which plays another Sauna. You only spent an action on the very first Sauna play, but you got plus 2 action total out of the 2 Sauna plays. And so you get 1 village effect for like every Thana you play after the first one, basically. That's how I would think about that. We got Counterfeit is great for thinning. As is Sacrifice. We've also got Way of the Sheep, which is actually really significant with Necropolis around. Where are the shelters? You're starting with shelters instead of estates. And one of those is Necropolis. And so you can actually play your Necropolis for +2 extra coins. It looks like Nerdbound's got the bad split here. You really don't want the Necropolis in the hand with four coppers, which they have. Because hitting 6 is useless. You don't want to buy gold. You'd rather hit 5. And if you have the Necropolis like in this hand, which is 2/3 as likely that your Necropolis would show up with 3 coppers, then you hit 5 one turn and 4 another, which is nice. You could buy like a 5 and a 4. Hitting 6/3 just seems like a much worse split here. That could be better with like if Altar from the previous game or Artisan were around, but here 5 is just the better number to hit. So how are we opening? On 5/4, Steph says Sacrifice Hunting Party. That does sound really good. The alternative, I think, would be Sacrifice Counterfeit. Also seems really good. I'd have to think between those two. I think I prefer the Counterfeit. Not that it's obvious. Thinning is winning. On 6/3, Counterfeit Silver. I like Silver better than Improve because you're really sad if your Improve lines up with your Necropolis. You can't play both of them. Well, I mean, you can't play Improve and you can't play Necropolis as Way of the Sheep, which is what you wanted to do. You could play the Necropolis for like +2 action, but then that's useless. So gamesou opened Duplicate. I don't like that. I mean, Duplicate is usually a horrible opening. Here it's less bad because if you draw it in like the right hand, you could sheep it, but it's still pretty bad. Like if your Duplicate collides with your Necropolis, you're really sad. I don't like the Duplicate at all. I'm not a fan. I also don't like the Improve for the same reason. I mean, Nerdbound gets really lucky here. Improve in a $5 hand, you can trash it and get like a sacrifice out of it. Will Crypt see play here? I mean, the big case against it is Counterfeit. Counterfeit's a really strong copper trasher. So there's a decent chance we don't see Crypt get bought. That being said, I did just play a game today where skipping Spice Merchant to just pseudo trash with Crypt actually worked out very well. What's your long-term payload? I think plus action is too limited to want to play a bunch of monuments. Maybe you like acquire a feudum and sack it and get some silvers out of it. So yeah, Nerdbound's turn 3 and turn 4 have gone about as well as you could possibly ask for. Their Necropolis and then their Improve were in separate hands. They managed to hit 5 twice. Now I would assume that you turn your Improve into a sacrifice. Harvest is just like, it's not a card that exists. Like you never buy it. It's like if Harvest is in the kingdom, you get a 9-card kingdom. I think the chances where Harvest are good are so few and far between. It becomes like it rises to level of mediocre, like with Village Green specifically, is like the only combo that even comes to my mind. Yeah, Harvest is easily bottom 5 card in the game, probably lower than that. I'd say second worst is, I think, where I would put it. Below Transmute, but still better than Philosopher's Stone. Even Harvest KC sounds pretty damn bad. Just because, like, if you draw your deck and then KC the Harvest, you still get 0 money out of it. Yeah, I mean, Harvest wins me games sometimes when my opponent gets it. What did Nerdbound do with their improve? They did not get a sacrifice out of it. They got a duplicate. Okay. Duplicate's fine at that point, I think. It's a little less greedy. As I say that, they already got punished for it. So they failed to hit 5 here, which means they don't get to duplicate a 5. They'll have to sheep one of these to get 5. But then you don't get to use the duplicate effect. Like if this were a sacrifice, they could have sacked the Overgrown Estate and then hit 5. And not have an Overgrown Estate in their deck. Yeah, like I described the duplicate as fine. I think it's a little bit less bad at that point. After turn 4, after you've had a good turn 3 and turn 4, you're more you're likely to hit 5 and still be able to duplicate a thing. It still seems worse than sacrifice to me. I do want to trash the Overgrown Estate. Maybe they plan to do that with Sauna instead. Who got the Saunas? Gamesou has 2 Saunas. Where did the other 2 Saunas come from? Gamesou has all of them? Oh my goodness. That's a lot of Saunas. That's a whole lot of Saunas. Is that good? I mean, my default reaction to gaining a lot of Saunas is that that's a bad idea. Who won what? Has someone already called this game? Oh, Clay Gear, I see. I mean, yeah, like winning the Sauna split is rarely important. In games where Sauna and Avanto were the key card, winning those splits matters. It's not that common for Sauna and Avanto to be the key card. This kingdom is not one of those kingdoms for sure. You don't even need to like deny Avanto. You can just like ignore it. Like I don't think I would waste a buy on an Avanto that's not good for my deck. Just to stop my opponent from getting it when I could get like a hunting party or something. Like I don't hate the 4 Saunas, to be honest. Like I don't think it's a game losing play for gamesou. One thing Sauna has going for it here is it is a village. So for example, gamesou could use monuments as payload if they wanted to and score that way, because they'll have a bunch of villages in their deck with the Saunas. Oh, they're not villages yet. There will be villages once you get a bunch of Avantos as well. And so that's something for sure. And now usually, one of the big reasons that Sauna Avanto is so weak is just because the Avanto pile are all entirely beneath the Sauna pile. And so let's say you go for the Saunas and Avantos. The way it usually plays out is like if both players do it, then the pile feels super strong because the Sauna pile empties fast. You get those Aventos immediately, and like your deck, kicks off very fast. And then you whoever has the winning split on the Sauna and Avento is way ahead. The problem, of course, is what if your opponent just ignores Sauna and Avento entirely and doesn't touch them? Well, then you've got to take all 5 Saunas before you can get to the first Avento. And Sauna is like not a very good card until you get to the Aventos. It's just like a generic cantrip that maybe can trash if you have silvers, which they don't even. And you spend a bunch of turns slogging through like a stack of 5 Saunas before you even get your first Avento. And then by that point, your opponent is so far ahead that even if you eventually get a very nice 5 Sauna, 5 Avento deck, it's just too late to catch up. And that's the big weakness. I mean, they are working on trashing Aglet. They have a counterfeit. I think for gamesou, you really want to add a silver here, so you can clean up these shelters. The Hovel and the Overgrown Estate at the very least should die. For nerdbound, I would have liked to sacrifice at some point to get rid of those. Taking Aventos now seems super losing. I assume Steph was referring to Nerdbound with that comment and not to gamesou. Obviously, gamesou wants Aventos. But yeah, Nerdbound has very little reason to contest the Aventos if you have no Saunas. Well, we see a pile out. So hunting parties can run, Aventos can run. If I were Nerdbound, I do want this game to go shorter, not longer. And I would be trying to threaten a third pile. And so maybe that's taking the last few hunting parties and then setting up to like duplicate a bunch of duchies. And that might be a faster way to end the game than provinces. Because the concern is your opponent can be behind on provinces, but because they've got this stack of villages, they'll be able to play a bunch of monuments, and that'll score them a bunch of points. I wouldn't be looking to pile up provinces so much as I think duchies might be the pile that I'm after. Something to think about there. Like you get a few duplicates down, and then you set off a chain of counterfeits, and then you buy a few duchies, duplicate the last few. Maybe improve one of your duplicates into a duchy. And then I think you could pilot duchies before the monument thing fully kicks off. That being said, Nerdbound's deck is like still not drawing. I think that duplicate before sacrifice is like hurting their deck a lot more than it even seemed at first. Like hunting party is really good at skipping over coppers because it's like a laboratory that'll just it guarantees you find like it's functionally +2 card +1 action. But all the text at the bottom is basically saying the second +1 card you get is guaranteed to be a card that's not already in your hand. So if you got like a handful of coppers, it guarantees you won't draw more coppers. But shelters, they're all unique. They each have a different name. And so hunting party not only doesn't doesn't skip shelters, it will like actively like pick them up over say, additional hunting parties and stuff, which can be a problem. So as Nerdbound, I really would have liked to trash those shelters sooner. As Nerdbound, I think I would maybe even trash the Necropolis. Certainly after the first two, but I would think about it. Yeah, I mean, gamesou has managed to get to the point of having a bunch of Saunas and Aventos without really being too behind otherwise, which is definitely a good spot to be in. Because, again, the main drawback of those cards is that they take a while usually to get to. So I think that they're in a pretty good spot now. Here, maybe Silver Feudum. A Sacrifice Feudum I like is... you can't buy Sacrifice Feudum, can you? They only had 7? Oh, more Aventos. I mean, clicking on way too much draw, more than you need, is less terrible than usual here because you could like sheep the extra cards. Um, but it still seems slower as a build than just taking like the payload you actually want. Um, I'll be back in a second. All right. What have I missed? So Nerdbound has finally picked up a sacrifice. Oh. I like that. Gamesou's got 11 and a duplicate. What are you taking now? Huh. Yeah, I mean, this set of buys is not totally obvious to me. Are you duplicating one of those, Moyo? If you take Fiatum Sacrifice, you're taking 2 Fiata? Two times Monument and a counterfeit. Yeah, that sounds pretty good. I can get behind the 2 monuments and a counterfeit line. You're going to be getting at the point where you want a third buy, I think. And you also want to get started on those monuments. The alternative could be, I mean, how many villages do they have? You could do 2 duplicates and a counterfeit and try to go for that duchy pilot before your opponent even could. I do really like the idea of getting a silver into this deck at some point, although it kind of feels a little bit awkward as to when you do that. Maybe even just like 2 silvers and a counterfeit here. It's not weird. I agree that gamesou does seem to be in a winning position here. Two counterfeits and a silver. Over 2 silvers and a counterfeit? I can get thinking here. I feel like this is a very non-obvious set of buys. You definitely want more gains in your deck. Counterfeit seems like the easiest way to get additional gains. I guess duplicate counts as well. Lowering Hunting Party is, I don't know, kind of weird. I mean, it's not like Hunting Party is a bad card for gamesou's deck or anything, but I'm not seeing why Hunting Party is better for them than Avanto is. I feel like maybe that's just like a case of like trying too hard to deny it to your opponent. I'm also not totally sure what we're using all the duplicates on now. Yeah, I think the deck's just like not quite together yet. Like I think the problem gamesou's got is they need like a few of a bunch of different cards. Like they want that last Avanto, they want at least one more counterfeit. They want like a silver, which could mean a sacrifice and a fiatum. And they have a lot of gains in the deck, but it's like duplicate gains, and so they can only get like 2 distinct cards at a time. And like the things that I think they really want to pick up here are diverse. I want the last Avatar more than I wanted a Hunting Party. Yeah. I don't think anyone was suggesting getting the Hunting Party, except apparently gamesou. So how many gains can Nerdbound's deck do? The Improve is in the trash. They have potentially 4 buys if they were to counterfeit a counterfeit. And they have 1 duplicate? That's not right, is it? I guess it is right. So Nerdbound's got 5 gains. How many gains does gamesou have? They've got 3 duplicates and 1 counterfeit. So gamesou has 2 buys and 3 additional gains. This set of buys confuses me. Province Fiatum. I was wondering about just like Avanto 2x counterfeit. Not that you want the Avanto or that you don't want your opponent to, but I think that your opponent couldn't pile out if you did that. And then you set up for a pile out. Actually, maybe they could pile out counterfeits. They might actually have enough gains for that. And then take the tie. I'm not even sure that's true. gamesou's deck has like no money. Goodness gracious. I did trash a captain and buy gold. Man, that felt terrible. Oh, what a kingdom that was. Yeah, I think that as Nerdbound, taking like Sauna 2x counterfeit might have just been winning. And then, oh sorry, Avanto 2x counterfeit. And then you just like pile out a stage next turn. I think it makes a difference, Shanahan. If you sheep the sauna, then you could play the necropolis and sheep both hunting parties anyway. Yeah, it's definitely 2, not 4. I'm not sure where the 4 is coming from. Gaining 3 gold is just like a sad amount of things to get done in this turn. They underinvested in actually useful payload last turn. Yeah, the sheep only works at the end of the chain. You can't sheep saunas and Aventos mid-chain and play on, but they could have sheeped the very last sauna. I think Nerdbound could have set up to punish this in one turn. I'm still on board with Avento counterfeits last turn, which I think puts you in a winning position this turn. What are those cards down there? 2 silvers, and what else? Is the hunting party down there? Okay, then they're probably fine. So now what does the gamesou's deck look like? They've still only got 1 counterfeit, but they've got 3 golds and 3 duplicates. That's potentially like still not that much money. I feel like going for provinces is not the best move here for Nerdbound. I'm still thinking. I mean, maybe it's just the double counterfeit Avento thing, but I'm still imagining as Nerdbound, go for the pile out. Your opponent is not really threatening the ability to do the same. I would have liked just like take a few more counterfeits and an Avento. I think sounds better than what they're doing. And they've done the same mistake with the sauna thing, where if they could have sheeped the sauna for 2 more coins. Yeah, that's true. This time it doesn't actually matter. There's nothing that you can need 18 money for. Um, Games are important. I think counterfeit is like a really scary in-game card. If you have 2 or 3 counterfeits in your deck, because you can counterfeit a counterfeit, and then that's giving you 2 extra buys. Like with the first counterfeit you play gives you 1 extra buy, and then every counterfeit after that in the chain is giving you 2 buys. And then you're like blowing up all your treasures. And then that threat to have a turn where you've got like 1,000,000 money and 1,000,000 buys is like a really big one. And I would like it if these decks had more ability to threaten to do that. Can Nerdbound triple? What? How much money do they have in their deck? I'm pretty sure the answer is yes in theory. Actually, maybe not. They did blow up a gold. So what's the best case for triple? They play counterfeit, counterfeit, gold, gold. That's 12, 14, 15. Then they would need to have 9 more money. Steph seems to have counted it and says there's no triple. Oh yeah, these are the only 2 golds left in Nerdbound's deck. So I think all that's down there for them to draw payload-wise is a silver and a counterfeit. Wow, what a hand. Oh, sad days for Nerdbound. This game's a bit of a roller coaster. Gamesou had the lead early, and then underinvested in payload, and then Nerdbound came back and now has a dud turn. So Gamesou might have another shot at this. I mean, Gamesou at least does have a deck that can get a lot of duchies, if nothing else. So, how many duchies do they need? They need 2 more duchies in total to win. I might just buy the last Avento here to make sure you draw. That might be better than another duchy. I'm not sure. I'm sure Gamesou was fully expecting to lose here, not knowing that Nerdbound's hand is so terrible. As Nerdbound, I'm not even sure buying a state is better than nothing here, honestly. I don't know what you buy as Nerdbound. There's nothing here that remotely helps you. Probably just a state, I guess. I'm not sure in what context a state could possibly matter. That is pretty funny. Gamesou has piled Saunas and Aventos and does not have a silver in their entire deck. Yeah, I think a state and Cry seems like a fine line to me, Moyo. Wait, why can Gamesou not win this turn if they draw? They just buy province and duchy and then duplicate the duchies? Okay, but they've got a bunch of duplicates in there. Yeah, the duplicate's not like a one-shot thing. You can put it back in play. I'm not understanding why you think they have to have another turn. If they draw their deck here, it's easily winning. Which I mean they didn't, but so close. They needed one more duplicate here. Yeah, so if they had one more duplicate, they could take 4 duchies. If they had one more coin, they could buy province duchy and then duplicate a duchy. Now, Nerdbound's hand is just surely winning. 4 hunting parties and a counterfeit. There's just like no conceivable way they don't win now. And that'll do it. They got the win in hand. You cheap one of these cards and then counterfeit the gold. I mean, you don't even need to cheap one of the cards. You could just counterfeit the gold and that'd be enough. Ooh, what a game. Alright, so Nerdbound's on the board. I think that's 4-1 now for gamesou. What have we got here? This looks like a lot going on. Clearly just play rebuild. So we got draw with Rabble, Alchemist, potentially Madman, Black Cat, Herald, potentially Will-O-Wisps from Pixie. Lots and lots of draw. Actions, we've got Workers Village, Herald, potentially Field's Gift from Pixie, Madman again is plus action, plus buy. There's various boons from Pixie, Salvager, Workers Village, trashing. We got Goat in the Kingdom. Cemetery can trash, Hermit can trash. Lots and lots of trashing. There's so much. There's a lot going on. This is a strong kingdom. Mission. What can you do on your mission turn? On your mission turn, I mean, you could play rebuilds if you had a rebuild in your deck. You can play hermits, potentially get a good boon off of Pixie. Mission doesn't look like the most important thing here, although it very well might get used a bit. Mission with Hermit feels like it will have some situational utility early on. Yeah, I agree with Steph. I think gamesou has correctly summarized how that game worked. They had a nice position and then faltered. So even setting aside everything else, rebuild would just be terrible here because rebuild gets decimated by black cats. Now, not setting aside everything else, rebuild also just is terrible here because the engine looks really strong. I think, I don't know, there could be like a weird case for maybe like rebuild on 5-2 just to like trash an estate into a cemetery. That's probably just wishful thinking on my part. I don't think rebuild is likely to get gained here. I mean, I guess is rebuild mission a thing? That's still no. You don't have a reliable way to get the duchies into your discard even. Yeah, I'm trying to make rebuild a thing, and it's just not happening. Rebuild's bad here. So what are we doing in the opening? Yeah, Black Cat destroys rebuild. Hermit Mission sounds like a plausible opening. There's always double Hermit Pixie. I think I like Hermit Mission from gamesou's position. For Nerdbound, I think it's just Pixie Hermit. Because they can't buy anything else. Alright, so gamesou went with double Hermit, which also totally fine. Double Hermit's often a good opening. They can pick one of these hermits. And then surely you're taking another hermit here. Whoa, 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 whoa. Don't like that. That was terrible. Maybe they weren't thinking about the fact that both of these hermits are going to turn into madmen, and they thought they were still going to have a hermit in their deck. But they've just killed both of their hermits, and now their deck has nothing of value in it. They're going to be able to draw their entire deck 2 times over with 2 madmen in it, and then their deck is going to do absolutely nothing at the end of that. Yeah, the silver... The only explanation I give for the silver is I think they thought they were just going to be trashing 1 hermit. Like, I don't think they realized that a hermit played as a way, and they played as way the pig, is still going to die at the end of the turn. Because the trashing part of hermit is not a 1 play effect. Gamesou just destroyed their deck. That's a good point. I don't know why you would take silver over Pixie in any case. I don't know what their plan was supposed to be there. Maybe they were going for like a big cemetery trash of the copper. Why do you even want that? You don't need cemetery. You got goat. I can't give a good justification for it. The silver was just a really, really bad unforced error. Pig the madman. Rebuild is not the answer. Rebuild is very much not the answer. Rebuild is occasionally the answer. It's not the answer here. Certainly not the answer here. I would take that. And now rebuy the hermit that you trashed with your enormous amount of money. You can also get a ghost here. Yeah. Man, imagine if this silver were a hermit. This hand would look so much better. Ghost plus Madman honestly does not sound that sad. Like, I assume what Clicker is describing is the Madman only gives you draw if you successfully return it to the pile. And so even if Ghost plays the Madman twice, you only draw once. But you can play the Madman the first time as Way of the Pig for +1 draw anyway, which is nice. But even setting aside Way of the Pig, the idea I had in mind is just a ghosted Madman draws 5 as opposed to 4, because you'll have 5 cards left in your hand instead of 4. And if you're drawing 5 cards, you're probably drawing your whole deck anyway. And so not getting to draw like 9 cards is not like the worst thing ever. Nerdbound thinking hard about Wind's Gift. I have to assume the answer is just no. Pixie's a good card, don't kill it. The lack of hermits in gamesou's deck is just like a really big problem. Think we're trashing a copper and buying Pixie Hermit? Maybe trash a state and buy double Hermit? Black cat. I mean, I guess it's draw, and you've got a village. I would rather take a second hermit, and then you can gain the black cats off your hermits. You mean off of this hermit play? I would think gain a second hermit, draw the hermit, gain a pixie off of that. Actually, you could maybe loop that even more if you wanted to. You can get hella hermits here. I'm not sure about the best order. I think maybe gain a hermit, draw a hermit, play the hermit, gain a pixie, draw the pixie, discard the pixie to Haunted Mirror. I'm actually not sure why it matters whether you draw the pixie versus discarding the Madman directly, but you could potentially get a bunch of hermits here, although that would leave you with no action to discard to Haunted Mirror. And I mean, that could be better. Haunted Mirror is not the most important thing, but at the very least, I'm confident that the first hermit gain should be a hermit, because you can redraw the hermit and play it. I'm not sure whether you want to loop that one more time. The silvers. Why the silvers? Stop with the silvers. If you wanted a silver, you could have just gained a hermit and then gained a silver and drawn the silver. I don't approve of the silver. Now what? Workers Village Pixie, Workers Village Cat. Uh-oh. Mission, okay. Herald sounds worse to me than Workers Village does. A pixie for a gold? That seems reasonable. Mostly because you can't buy anything. If this were not a mission turn, I would not take it. But obviously these coppers are not doing anything for you. That mission turn did a decent amount. I can totally see that being worth it. Gain a hermit. Yeah, I like Nerdbound's position a lot better. I feel like gamesou is just severely underplaying these hermit things. All the hermit related decisions have gone badly. Are we playing a madman here? I mean, presumably Black Cat's it's a draw card. Like that's the main thing for it. The problem with Black Cat is not that you don't want it in your deck. I would happily take the entire stack of Black Cats and shove it in my deck. It's just that I might be even happier doing the same thing with Pixie, which costs the same. Do keep in mind that with Way the Pig, of course, Black Cat is a very low cost card to have a bunch of. Just have them sitting in your deck waiting to fire. Yeah, you could pig them instead. I mean that could come up maybe if your opponent was scoring and you wanted to draw, but you didn't want to lower the curse pile or something and open up a curse pile out. And so you pig the Black Cat to avoid handing out a curse. All right, we're missioning. I can get behind that. I think I would have liked 2 workers' villages there. You can get the Black Cats with your hermits. Lots of bad men. All right, we're getting close to pilot territory here. Hermits will run. Black Cats and Pixies could totally run. We're gonna be in that awkward phase where like you might want to just like pile out and buy an estate, but if you buy an estate, you might take 4 curses and end up losing off of it. What do you buy as nerdbound? I think I want a mission and grab the last hermit. And then I'm not sure what else to buy. Maybe just a workers' village. If we wanted the hermit, this is definitely just worse. Like if you wanted the hermit, you could have missioned for it. Maybe they want a hermit more than a madman, and then they're. No, that's not it. I guess maybe that's it. Maybe they just really didn't want to take a madman, and wanted to keep both hermits, because missioning for the hermit would turn your old hermit into a madman. Not on that turn, but on the mission turn it would. Mountain's Gift might be worth taking. They decline it. I mean, you got a ton of draw sitting there. You could totally take the silvers and. Oh, did the pixie die? You raised a valid point. I had not noticed they'd already trashed their pixie from the first play. More cats now, I think. I think we're getting to the point where I think I value the cats more than the pixies. And also, as nerdbound, I think you gotta stop missioning here, because I don't want to lose my hermit anymore. I'd rather keep that last hermit around. I mean, I guess you could mission and not play the hermit, but then why are you missioning? I mean, yeah, maybe you just spend the 4 just to play the ghost and check a pixie boon. Is province bad here? I mean, not necessarily. The pile's getting low. You could try scoring. What do I mean test for Black Cat? But I mean, I don't think I'm understanding your logic there. The only way you get deluged with curses is if you buy a victory card in the first place. I mean, scoring earlier is not ridiculous, because if you take the curses, you can trash them with your hermit. Um, and then you can safely pile out without having to take a victory card on the final turn. I'm honestly not sure exactly what I want to buy here for Nerdbound. A lot of options. They went with the province. That seems fine. They also got away with it too. Poor gamesou has their cat stuck out of play. These cats are very shy. Alright, now here might be a reasonable point to hermit for silver. Okay, the first time I finally suggest gaining a silver, then they get the pixie instead. I mean, does it matter if you take a pixie first? You can draw the silver either way. You just play your Black Cat to draw it instead of the pixie. So I think as gamesou, you just trash the copper and buy province here. Oh, definitely can't take this. No way. I'm gonna guess that they're not really contemplating the boon. Somebody's contemplating their buys. If they're contemplating the boon, the answer just has to be no. Oh no. I would rather have a pixie, honestly, and not have a copper. Like, you basically trashed a pixie for a copper and a gold. You also could consider keeping the copper and buying a second pixie. Why do you want to see that? I don't understand what this idea is with testing out how many curses you'll get. You just... The answer is 0 if you don't do that. Not really learning anything. Well, I mean, you already know if you can pile. The answer is no, you don't have enough gains. Have I spoken too soon? Or is this boon gonna come in clutch? Yeah, as nerdbound, I'm not taking the tie. I don't think the boon was enough. Taking River's Gift. I think taking River's Gift is probably worth it. Oh, actually, yeah. No. I'm starting to see your point. River's Gift makes you much more likely to line up the Black Cats. Yeah, River's Gift actually sounds pretty nice. Okay, but then you've got a state in your deck instead of a pixie. That's true, and a state and a copper in your deck instead of a pixie. We're thinking about Earth's Gift. I have to assume the answer is no here. I don't think you can afford that. And as I say that, they do want it. Doesn't that just lose immediately? Province Silver here, I guess. Forgot about Way of the Pig. I don't understand why Way of the Pig is influencing that decision. I mean, the reason to not take Pixie is because the piles are low. So gamesou does not want a province after all. What do they want? I mean, yeah, the undo seems fine. You obviously aren't learning anything, even with the black cats around, because you already tested the waters, as everyone's been wanting to do with the cemetery. But also, I feel like even supposing they hadn't gained this cemetery and all, in any case, I still think it's a fine undo. Because if you bought a province and got hit with 5 black cats and clicked undo, that would be ridiculous. But if you bought a province and learned that there were no black cats, then at best the information you gave would it can't make you want to buy province less. Learning the province was actually going to give you fewer curses than you thought should only push you further in the direction of buying province. And if you get 0 curses on undo anyway, I think that's still pretty reasonable. Can nerdbound pile if you take Pixie? I mean, it's hard to say exactly, of course, because you don't know if they're going to draw and you don't know what the Pixie boons are. But certainly it's possible. Yeah, so if you do Pixie Province, they would need to do 4 black cats and duchy. Although they might need to assume more than that, because they don't know if you'll have black cats. I mean, they might need to plan around 4 black cats in province. They have the gains for it. The question is just the money. They would need to hit 14. Does their deck have 14? Yeah, I was thinking province silver. And they've decided province estate. I wonder if province estate. Now, province estate can't be dangerous because they've already seen forest's gift on this shuffle, and I think not mountain. Earth gift as well. So I don't think, even with the right boons, the estate pixie pile out is possible. I do not know whether this field's gift is worth it, partly because I don't know exactly what's left in Nerdbound's deck. What all do they have down there? Let's see if we can find out. This might be all their payload in their hand right now. I think they might just have 2 silvers and a gold. I believe at least one of the cards on the bottom is a cat. I don't know exactly though. Okay, so there's a cat in a workers' village. Yeah, so I don't know. Nerdbound just seems to be a little bit low on payload. I would think about a silver here. Yeah, I mean, I could totally see Rabbles getting gained. It is a draw card. They just haven't really needed it on account of early in the game you get Madmen, and the Hermits can gain you Black Cats very easily, and Black Cat's the card you want a bunch. But there's definitely context where you would strongly consider buying Rabble here. So they've got 10 money now. Hermit for silver can bring that to 12. Ooh, what are they doing here? They've taken a pixie. Maybe they're trying to set up for a pile out next turn? What do you mean keep the curse? I guess they prefer to trash it with goat. Is there a reason one is better than the other? I don't really have a good reason why trashing with goat is better. Is lowering the estate pile dangerous? I don't know how many gains gamesou has. Okay, I'm back. I think my computer was just being a bit slow there for a second. So Nerdbound wins here if he draws, I believe. Although that's not looking super great at the moment. All right, yeah, this is a win, right? He's got 8 in hand and an estate gain. Just pile the estates. How many black cats does gamesou have? 3? Is it 3? You know they have at most 2 in their hand. So you're guaranteed to tie. At worst. I believe that the tie was guaranteed there and the win was possible. I mean, maybe he thinks his odds are better than that if he plays on. Because has he popped the Hermit yet? Or the Madman? He hasn't. He's got a Madman next turn. And I think this is a tie unless gamesou's got 1 black cat in the bottom 2 of the 9 cards he's got left. And so it might have made sense for Nerdbound to play for the win here. Oh, I mean, you've got a good point. What if you just gain the estate? Now, here, that testing the waters thing that everyone was talking about earlier when it didn't make sense. That actually might make sense here. If you gain the estate, then you learn how many black cats they have. This actually might be one of the very rare circumstances where you learn information that you really shouldn't just because of the way the client works. Like if you play the hermit and you see that your opponent has an option that they're not taking, then you know that they've got black cats left. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Oh, goodness. That last estate might have been very bad, not very good. He's just lost now. I do not think that estate was a wise idea. I guess it's actually it will end up being better and not worse for Nerdbound if gamesou manages to hit 6, which they did. Because given this draw for gamesou, that estate actually makes no difference since they could have gotten 5 estates anyway. gamesou will see a 4 estate pile out. I have full faith and confidence that they will identify that they can take 4 estates here. All right, 5-1 finish for gamesou. Big win for gamesou. Nerdbound is still 50-50 so far because they won their first match 5-1. Well, that's the match.